Arts Center. I started ceramics in 1968, and I've been working ever since. I think it's about 46 or 47 years. So over those years, I've taught a lot of different, 47 years. So over those years, I've taught a lot of different places. I've been teaching actually probably since, I don't know, 45 years. And from my generation, which is in the 60s, it was what we call now old school type teaching in Europe, or actually anywhere in the world where they had apprentices that were born into a pottery family or came to work in a pottery family. Nobody really taught anything. You just absorbed, just osmosis. You hung around. You're crawling around the floor in the pottery in India or Africa or whatever. And that ended up being your life's work. But in modern times, some of these old school people like Volkus and Solner and a lot of these people that have now passed away, when they started in the 50s. And in those days, there was still this kind of wave of old school people that had come from Europe or Norway or whatever. And their training was as an apprentice, and they weren't really taught. Nobody ever stood there and held your hands and showed you how to center. It just didn't happen. So these people didn't teach that way. That's not how it worked. So, like when I started, my teacher was a guy named John Nygren. He went to Cranbrook, and he studied with Maya Grotel, who was from Germany. And when he came to where I was at UNC Wilmington to teach pottery out of Cranbrook, he never taught us anything. He not even considered, you want to learn how to do this, and you learn how to do it. In fact, the first time I ever had enough bisqueware together to do a glaze firing, I said, can you, where are the glazes, basically. And he said, well, if I were you, I'd go to the library and check out a chemistry book. And that was the extent of, there were no shot glazes, there was nothing. That's just the way it was taught. And if you really wanted to do it, you busted your butt and figured out how to do it. So now it's very, very different. Over the years we've seen, you take a pottery class. If I were to come into a class and say, okay, here's the clay and here's the wheel and, show me how to center, you'd have a job for about 45 minutes. You'd be thrown out, You just can't get away with that anymore. You just don't do that. People really want to know how to do it, and immediately, just like everything else, it has to be immediate gratification. So over the years, just in my own defense, I've learned how to teach people how to center, how to open, how to throw a pot, pretty fast. And I see people now that can learn how to center, like Julie here is going to do in a minute. She never used the wheel, right?
Probably about 3 years ago once.
Yeah. So I can take actually rank beginners that have never touched clay before and teach them how to center basically in just a few minutes. And just like I said, in my early days, it took me months, just to learn how to center. And John Nygren, the greatest person in the world, I'm still in touch with him after all these years. And he would tell you right here, if he were here now, he lives near Winston-Salem, he would say, yeah, I never showed anybody how to center. Are you crazy? Nobody taught people how to center. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's a fact. So I'm going to demonstrate what we're doing, and Julia, who we'll introduce, is going to sit down after 30 years of not throwing, and I'm going to try to teach her how to center real fast. So this is Julia.
My name is Julia Burns. Sorry, I have stage fright. I don't like talking on camera, but I've been doing ceramics for about 7 years. I've always been interested in it, but my high school teacher had no interest in it whatsoever. He was into comic book art and stuff. So when I went off to college, I knew I loved art, and finally took a ceramics class, and that's where I spent all my time, and ever since. But I prefer doing sculptural work, building them solid and hollowing out. So let me learn how to center.
Okay, so just a few little facts. One is I notice a lot of people when they're going to center, they'll put the clay down, like that. So obviously that's not very centered. So my suggestion is that You start off with a, a ball maybe about as big as a grapefruit or something like that. And it's not that hard at all just to use these concentric circles and just try to get the clay in the middle of the wheel to start with, right? So that's a little bit off center. So I would just say, well, let's move it over a little bit. It's just common sense, you can almost get it centered right from the very beginning. And then the other thing I've noticed over the last couple of years, and I've never seen this before, is a lot of people are teaching ceramics with the wide open wheel. Teaching centering like that. Now, from my way of thinking, that's impossible. But people teach it and people learn it, so I guess it is possible. But you've never seen anybody on an Indian wheel or a European wheel, a tread wheel, like Leach used, and like McKinsey and Michael Simon and that whole lineage, the Mingay Soda people. They do a treadle wheel. It rarely ever goes any faster than that, even to center. They literally won't go any faster than that. You ever tried a treadle wheel?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like an old sewing machine, and you have to keep your foot engaged the whole time or it stops. So I don't know where this came from, I swear. To me it seems like if you're going too slow, just ask, do you center with the wheel going wide open?
No.
Okay, so if the wheel is going too slow, it's almost impossible to center because you're not getting a full revolution. Like here would be like pretty good centering speed for me. Here would be right back to going too slow. I don't know the physical reason for that. You'd have to ask a physics guy, a mathematician or something. But that is impossible. Plus, it just makes you nervous to look at. Do you throw wide open?
I don't throw wide open, but I do start with a pretty fast wheel, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way I was taught.
Like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if it works, it works for you. So anyway, so here's the deal. So normally, all these years, this is not in the way, is it? So all these years, I've always taught how to hold your hand. So right hand pushes in from the side. And you see where my arm is resting on my leg here? And the left hand is pushing on the top. So that means that the left hand does that amount of work and the right hand does that amount of work. They have to do different things. If you hold your hands like this, the clay's going to go up, right? Mm-hmm. If you hold your hand like that, the clay's going to go down. So what we're trying to do is find a happy medium there where we can make a shape that, to me, looks like, what does it look like? Well, I had one of my kids when I taught high school said it's supposed to look like a piece of cake, a cake. And that's pretty accurate. Down on the top, in on the side. Down on the top, again that, and then on the side. So this knuckle and this whole part of my hand is doing just that. And whatever shape your hand makes, that's what the clay's going to make. One thing that people do when they're centering is they hold their hand like that, and then they wonder where all this clay is coming out here. And the reason for that is because that's the shape your hand's making. Whatever your hand is doing, that's where the clay's going. So if you can really tuck your hand under like that, then you can get it to be, pretty much straight up and down. And that's what we're trying to do. So that hand does that. This hand does that. Now, just for, FYI, I mean, there are a million ways to center, and they all kind of work eventually. But I'm just trying to get to the easiest way to do it. Because, when you're a teacher, it's frustrating to watch somebody just sit there, wobble, wobble, wobble. And so, this is the way I taught for years and years and years. In from the side, down from the top. But then I figured out that, let's see, and also this is the way I teach. So I get the clay centered, and then when the person gets the clay centered, then I just push it over like that, and then say recenter again. And this is another thing people do not want to do is practice. If you're playing anything, sport or music or whatever, this first thing that comes to your mind is practice. But nobody ever sits down and makes like 10 cylinders, before they start their day of making pots. It's just unheard of. You just immediately want to make something that counts. But, we don't practice. I'm as guilty as anybody else. So anyway, so here's what I figured out over all these years. If you move your right arm over into as close as you can get it to your center, almost to the point of touching your whatever bone that is right there. What is that? Your hip bone?
Pelvic bone?
Yeah, I never was good at kinesiology. I took it, but I had a basketball coach for a teacher. We all got A's.
Your golf coach didn't do that for you, huh?
Well, I know. Okay, so here we are. So now I've got my elbow here. Now so when I'm centering like this, I'm using my leg as a brace. And if you can get your legs on the wheel on the splash pan and brace your arm, it helps a lot. And it worked fine, for years. But then I figured out, if you move your elbow over here and push forward with all your body weight, you don't even really feel your hands. So I'm going to knock it off. I'm just using one hand now. So I get my arm here, and I just lean into it with my body weight. And you can see it comes right to center. So that's what we're up to. So it's over here instead of on the side. You see how strong that is? Everything's on my legs. My elbow is in my hip, and I'm pushing into it with all my body weight. And then here's what almost everybody does when they learn to center. You get excited to see it centered, so here's what we do. Oh, knocked it off center. Oh my God, how did that happen? It happens every time. You got to center, and then relax, and sneak away from it real slow. You can't jerk your hands. Anytime you jerk your hands away, you're always going to knock it off center. Did Charles teach
He did,
left hand on top
and kind of twist. Yeah.
like that? But the right hand was here, or?
The right hand was here.
Okay.
The left hand twist in
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
You're twisting it the opposite way.
Mhm.
I'm left-handed, so it worked like a charm.
Did you throw left-handed though, or right hand?
I throw right-handed.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna knock it off center. This is what I do. I drive people nuts. And when you're teaching people how to knock off center, it's kind of funny. Like almost everybody will slap the clay, and then you get the clay all over your face. And so all you do is just hold your hand there and push on it a little bit and jerk your hand away. Jerking your hand away always works. Believe me. So here we go. So we center. Now see, this looks a little awkward right here. It's not covering the whole thing, but you don't have to cover the whole thing. It's a circle. All you have to do is cover half of the circle, and you cover the whole thing. So we knock it off center, jerk away. Now come back and center. Now let go real slow, real slow, real slow, just barely. Any jerky move, like this, Ingrid, it's so subtle, but it just is no way. Okay, you get it centered, all excited. Have y'all ever done that?
Yeah.
A few times.
So that basically is it. It's just a move in the right elbow.
I built it into my aesthetic, Rick.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Now this could be real helpful, for some people. It doesn't always work, but I've seen it work almost all the time. All right, Julie, you ready? I'm going to knock it off center a little bit, so that's all right. All right. Now just don't worry about anything. Just put okay, you're going to center, and you're just sitting down to center. Okay, kick it up. I'll tell you when. Another thing is that a lot of people don't do is it's very hard to think about your foot and accelerating and deaccelerating and centering or throwing at the same time. So I always recommend set the speed and just take your foot off and relax. That's probably a little bit fast. I got it. Okay, now just put your hands on there and see if you can wet your hands. They're going to be really wet. Okay, good. Okay, Now just take your hand off. Okay. So here's what we're trying to do. So your position is good. You can move this even more if you can, so that this hand is actually right here. And what I want you to do is feel, see, there's some kind of physics problem going on here, which I don't know if it is, but we're making an immovable object, you could say, almost. So we want this solid, this on the clay, and I want you to feel the pressure coming from your back and not from your arms and hands. So you're basically leaning your whole body weight into it. Okay, come on. Okay, left hand on top. Let me jerk away. Yeah, this hand is here. This hand is good. Okay, good. That's centered.
Jerked away.
You jerked away a little bit, but she's centered immediately. Hold it still, hold it still. Now don't
How does it
jerk.
feel,
Just
Julia?
Relax, relax, relax. Perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, this is a little too tall, and the reason it is, there's a reason for everything. If this is too tall, it's really harder to open when you go to make your opening and start spreading out. So it needs to be that cake shape. Just push down a little.
This
Yeah,
part?
exactly. Just this, and it only has to cover half of it. Okay, just push down, and you can do this at the same time now. So, but if it's too tall, that means this is
Okay, so
this is
now
too
what?
hard. If it's too low, that means this is too hard. That's the feeling you want right there, and that's the shape you want. Okay, perfect. Now don't jerk, don't jerk, don't jerk. It's amazing how it's so natural for everybody to jerk away from the clay. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's because you want to see it centered, and so you just want to get away real fast and see it. Okay, let's try it again. No, it's just crazy, it's maddening for people. But how else are you going to do it? You have to get to the point where you only spend just a matter of seconds centering. That's perfect, beautiful. Now you jerk.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah. All right, try again. Not quite. You got the centering, now we got to figure out how to let go of it. The only way I know how to explain it is that you just relax the muscles in your hands and fingers. And just left hand goes left, right hand goes right. That's the only way you can get away with it without jerking. Anytime you follow the clay, you always knock it off center. I'll show you in a second. Okay. Okay, here's the follow. Aside from jerking away, when you follow like this, you always knock it off center. If you jerk away from it, you always knock it off center. Okay, now center it for me and get away from it. This is really strong. You feel this?
Yeah.
That's perfect, perfect, perfect. Now you got it. Do it.
All right.
Perfect. Now, if you
got
feel,
excited.
it got too dry, so then you feel like grab, and then you gotta start over. It'd be fun to have, some kind of architect or physics person or whatever to figure out this whole thing about how you're building this brace, You're literally building a brace around the clay, so it can't not work. That's really good, you got it. Now this is because your hand is letting you do that. It's this right here, and it has to almost like undercut. In fact, when you make a bowl, you need to undercut, so you make a foot right from the very beginning. So it's more of a mushroom than just straight up and down. But that's another lesson. Okay, come on. There you go. There you go. That's perfect. All right, good. You drug it off just a hair, though, so good for you, Julie. Good job.
Good time.
How does it feel, Julia? How did it feel?
Awesome. I really felt it in my back.
Yeah.
And then when releasing, I had to think about that spot and start from there and then move through my hands. So that was really cool. It was a good feeling.
Yeah.